Welcome to the Manifesting Latina podcast, where you'll learn to unlock your incredible power of manifestation and connect deeply with yourself. I'm Dr. Norma Reyes, your guide and host, helping you manifest a life filled with purpose, abundance, and inner wisdom. Together, we'll dive into the art of manifestation, practical techniques, personal growth, and the magic of aligning with your deepest desires. No more feeling stuck or disconnected. It's time to awaken your inner manifester. Embrace your spirituality and create a life that truly resonates with your soul. Tune in each week to the Manifesting Latina podcast and begin to manifest your dream life. Hey everyone, welcome back. This is episode 113 and I have a special guest interview for you. And what's most exciting, this is the first guest since the podcast changed into the focus of manifestation. So I can't wait for you guys to hear her manifestation journey and how she manifested a sold out event for her 10-year weight loss anniversary. So it was so exciting to also see the behind the scenes and how she unfolded this. And so without further ado, I'm going to share with you, her name is Samantha Lee. She is a Hmong American, the eldest daughter of refugee immigrant parents, a speaker and a health coach who helps people of color lose weight without having to follow any racist diet culture rules. She is also the host of Your Winning Journey podcast and shares weight loss teachings with her 10 years of experience. Her work was inspired by her own weight loss journey, where she felt the need to strip her culture identity to fit into society standards of white, healthy. I know I can relate to that and know that everything that she is teaching is so aligned with how I now see food. And I hate to use the word diet because it has been turned into losing weight, but diet is really just what you eat, right? So your lifestyle of what you decide to eat. If you are interested in checking her out, her links are all in the show notes. And thank you so much, Sam, for being here with me. I can't wait for everyone to hear all about you and your own manifestation journey. But before we even dive into that, I want to hear more about you, your family background, where did you grow up, and who did you live with?
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me, Norma. I'm super excited because I just posted a podcast of me and Norma on my podcast. So I'm like super hyped that we're doing this episode. But hello, everyone. My name is Sam. I'm a weight loss coach for women of color. And I help women lose 20 pounds without following racist diet culture. And so I approach weight loss from this anti-racist lens, but also just helping women eat the foods that they grew up with from their cultural background so that they don't have to strip a part of their identity just to be healthy. And so just a little bit about me is I am the oldest in my family. I'm a first gen. My parents are immigrants and refugee parents that came here to the US. I grew up in Minnesota, and something kind of funky about me, every time I tell people this, they're always like super surprised. I went to school for my bachelor's and my master's in information systems, which is similar to IT. And so now that I'm doing work that is not really related in that field, it's super like completely opposite of being a behind the scenes person to now a person that works with people and talk to people all the time. It's kind of mind blowing for people, but yeah, that's about me.
Yeah. And you said your parents are refugees?
Yeah.
Where are they from?
So they were born in Laos and Thailand, and they came to the US in the Vietnam War when it happened. And there was a secret war between the US and the Hmong people. And we were with the US at that time trying to fight the communism. And then we got promised that if we help the US, we get to migrate into the United States. And so there's this whole like history behind it. And it's kind of interesting because we don't really hear people talk about the secret war in your history class. And so now people are just talking about it and like really unveiling like the real things that really happened in the Vietnam War. So it's interesting. They were born and lost in Thailand though.
Yeah. I mean, and that's not the only part of the world that the US has done things like that before. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway. We won't dive into that rabbit hole. So you went to school to do, you said information
Systems.
systems. Okay, I wanted to say science, but I knew that was wrong. Information systems, and then when just kind of even go from there to the manifesting part. How was that transition from being in that field to helping women with weight loss?
Oh my gosh. So when I went to school, I originally wanted to be a marketer. And I actually always wanted to be a photographer when I was in high school because I was doing photography at the time. But my parents, my dad was like, "You're not going to make any money. So you need to go to school and you need to get a degree in science because STEM is like very popular. And it was the time where technology was evolving. And I've always was interested in fitness. So I started my weight loss journey when I was 16. And so that was like during high school time, right? And it was always something that I wanted to do and more on the creative side because I was into photography, but I was also into like just helping people in their journey. But my parents were like, you should just go to school and find a good job. And so I did what they said. And I just remember like getting my first 9 to 5 job, like literally right after I graduated. Like I secured a job before I graduated. And I went to my 9 to 5 and I'm like, what the fuck? Is this what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life? It's horrible. I don't like it. And that was when I started, like the fitness in me started calling my name again. Like I was just hearing that intuition of, hey, you should probably like do something about this. Like you should probably start like a side hustle or like start like a business. And then I started posting things on Instagram. And before all of this, mind you, I tried so many things. I was a photographer and I was also a beauty influencer. So I did a lot of makeup tutorial on YouTube. And so I had a following already, but I was really passionate about fitness. And so when I was in my 9 to 5, I actually pivoted. I'm like, you know what? Let me just really go all in on just posting fitness content. And it started from there. And then when 2021 happened, I got laid off from my job. And I'm like, you know what? Let me just go full time on my business. I took that leap of faith because I was just listening to that wiggle like voice in my head and like my intuition. And now I'm here. So that's pretty much like about how I got to the weight loss fitness industry.
Okay, okay. And we'll touch on that here in a little bit. But can you share a little bit about any spiritual practices or any beliefs that help play in your manifesting journey? I know you just said intuition, right? And as women, oftentimes we get told that our intuition is silly, right? You can't just go based on a feeling. Although I will point out that men trust their gut all the time, and that's okay. But when it comes to women, we can't trust our intuition. And I'm not saying that we can't, but the society tells us we can't. And I think a lot of it is because we relate it more to a feeling. Like, I don't know about that. I just got a feeling not to do it.
Yeah. Some of my spiritual practice is meditation. And I just don't want you to be scared when you hear the word meditation because I feel like people think you have to meditate for like a whole hour to see the benefit. But really, meditation to me is just letting myself have quiet time. And sometimes that's not me even closing my eyes, but just not consuming anything and just seeing what my inner voice is saying to me. And it's so interesting that we're talking about this because as a little kid, I just felt like I talked to myself a lot. And so I feel like that has been something that I've always done was just talking to myself. Like people were always like, you talk so much. I'm like, I feel like I can have a whole conversation in my head just by myself. And so one of my spiritual practices is just that meditation piece, but also I am really future driven. And so I like to think about the future a lot, which can be a pro and a con because sometimes it takes me outside of being present. But I'm always thinking ahead and I'm always thinking like, what's going to happen 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And I try to visualize like how my life will look like. And that has always determined what my present decisions look like, which can be fun, but sometimes my husband is like, okay, you need to like chill and just like be present right now. So
Yeah, definitely. I mean, being future oriented is great, but like it can steal some of the joy of when you're being present, right? So, was there any specific practices that your family passed down to you?
so we practice shamanism. It's more of a ritual more than a religion, but it is where we practice our rituals during the full moon and the new moon, depending on the year. And we also do like a new year cleanse to start like a new year. And so I feel like because of that ritual, I've always had this close relationship with my spirit of making sure that I'm also doing things that connect me back to my ancestors. And so it's like honoring my grandpa that has passed away or my great grandpa and grandma. It's like honoring the loved ones that we have lost and also really praying to them for greatness to come on things that we want to manifest. And so we really have this like relationship with our ancestors where we can reach them when we want to, and having them protect us and believing that there's a bigger God, a bigger universe, or a bigger ancestor, whatever you believe in, that is helping guide you. And so I've always been kind of like, okay, this mission, the things I'm doing is so much bigger than me because of the practices that I grew up learning.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Can you remember when you started consciously manifesting any of your desires?
That's really interesting. I don't really know exactly when. The closest thing I can remember was just in high school when I was taking pictures of people because at the time I want to be a photographer, and I was visualizing what it was like to have a studio of my own. And I remember like looking up the studio props on Amazon and how much it would cost and like all of those things. And I just remember really imagining the people coming into my studio and taking pictures of me and like me feeling like, oh, like I really like that. But then I stopped visualizing because I remember telling my dad that dream and he was like, you're not going to make any money. And so I feel like it was always in me to kind of just see like what it would be like if I was a photographer. And I stopped that visualization actually when I went to college, because the visualization that I was doing in college was what society was telling me, like, go get a job, right? I mean, graduate from
Mhm.
college and then get a good job. And so I didn't actually start visualizing again until I got my 9 to 5 job. And I'm like, what am I doing with my life?
That is super interesting. I would say that in my teenage years is when I was exploring and connecting with spirituality, not necessarily in visualization, but it's very interesting that you were visualizing that. Like how many people at that age are visualizing, like, oh, I'm opening up a studio. Oh, I'm doing this and that, and these people are coming in. That is so interesting. And thank you for sharing how our dreams are sometimes crushed, lack of a better word, but literally crushed. I mean,
Yeah.
and that chapter was closed for you in regards to the visualization, right? The imagining of what could be. Instead, you kind of stepped more into like that masculine energy of just doing versus creating, and the doing of like going to school, checkbox grades, right? And kind of being more in the physical world in regards to like going to class, maybe going to parties, meeting people, focus more on like your personal appearance maybe than, oh, my future goals. Right. So you said that once you were in your 9 to 5, that's when you were like, whoa, it was kind
Yeah.
of like a wake up, like, okay, this is not for me. And share with a little bit on that. How did you then start to visualize or maybe more consciously manifest or step into the desires that you truly wanted for yourself and in your life and your career?
Yeah. So it was all because like when I got that job and I was at the office, I was like, I don't even want this. Like, what have I been working towards? And it was all because of like I was living in my parents' manifestation, but I wasn't living in my own manifestation. And what got me to really start manifesting at that time again was I had to ask myself, okay, Sam, what do you want to do? And are there people doing what you want to do? Can we find some possibility here? And that's when I discovered the coaching industry because I was just so curious. I was like, okay, I want to learn how to start a business, but I don't know. And so let me see if there's a business coach. Like, is that even a thing? Is there even like a social media manager at this point? Like, I don't know. Because just to give y'all some background, when I started my weight loss journey, I did a lot of diets. I went through a lot of trial and error. And it took me like 4 years for me to figure out, like, okay, I'm not going to diet anymore. And so I took that mentality to business. I'm like, I'm going to ask for help. I'm not going to try to figure it out on my own, like how I did in my weight loss journey. So I'm going to search up and see if there's people doing this. And that's when I started seeing people like working from home, and they're like, oh, like you can help people with their weight loss journey, and you don't have to like be at your 9 to 5. You can make extra money. And so when I just started seeing possibility outside of my 9 to 5, just by looking at different careers that people had, or just like how they work with like their lifestyle, right? I started painting a picture of, okay, maybe I don't want to go into the office. Maybe I don't see myself working 40 hours a week. Maybe I want to travel more. And like I don't want to just take like one big trip a year because of my PTO. And I started asking myself, like, okay, with these possibilities that you see these people doing, what do you want for yourself? And I think asking myself that question is one of the hardest questions that I've ever had to ask, because, sometimes we think we know what we want, but really we don't. And me getting clear on that really allowed me to make my visualization for my manifestation to be more grounded and like more detailed.
Yeah. And would you say how long did it take for you to actually feel that clarity, that alignment? Did it take some time? Did you feel like you had an epiphany at one point?
Yeah, I think it was a year, because I was at my job for a year. And when you kind of have that little intuition that's like, hey, you should probably do something different. You're like, yeah, 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 I know. And then you kind of just go about your day. You don't really listen to it. And then a year goes by, and I'm like, okay, you really like, that was at the point where I was balancing my 9 to 5, and I was going to grad school at the same time. And I'm like, I don't know why I'm doing this. And I'm like, I'm just so sick of like coming home from work and doing homework. And like that was my repeat every day. And so I was like, okay, I have to do this. And at this time, let me just remind you that there was a lot of people asking me, like, Sam, how did you lose weight eating Hmong food? And just so you guys know, my ethnicity is Hmong. And people would be like, how did you do that? Or like, how did you get a toned body? Can you teach me how to do this? And I saw that there was something missing in the industry where women of color didn't get what they needed because they were trying to like eat the white culture way, right? And so I feel like the universe was like, okay, if you're not gonna listen to this voice, then I'm gonna send you people to talk to you about this topic. Because I remember being on my 9 to 5, and people would come to me, like my cousins, my friends, they would message me, be like, can you help me lose weight? Can you help me do that? And I'm like, I'm not really serious about it. Like, sure, I can help you, but I'm not really that good, you know? And that was when I was like, okay, I really have to take this seriously, because people are actually out here needing help. And I had to really think about like my journey of, if I had me at the beginning of my journey, how different would my journey look like? And that was
Yeah.
really what like got me to really have that epiphany, was just people just coming at me with these questions and like asking me for help on the thing that I was trying to avoid, because I was trying to live in my parents' manifestation journey.
Yeah. And so many of us probably did that, even if we're doing something we enjoy doing, or not even that we enjoy doing, but something that came to us easy. And it's like, oh, well, this is easy for me. So I'm going to major in this. Oh, okay. I got this job. I guess this is where I'll do, without really asking ourselves, what do I really want to do, until we're in that, like you just mentioned, the hustle bustle of life, like waking up, going to work, going to school, and repeat. And it's just like so mundane, so boring. There's not any stress in your life, but it's also no joy.
Yeah.
And it's like, what am I doing? So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, I'm right there. Just know that, you can find a way out of that. And there's going to be moments in time where life does feel that way because you're in a transitional period. I know sometimes, like, especially if you just had a child, you just have to get used to having a new baby in your life. If you just got married, so know that there's transitional periods that is okay. Just don't stay there too long, because then, 3 4 years, that's going to be even longer time that you were in that mode, and it's not going to feel good. So you dove in to starting your business when you got laid off, and you recently had your 10-year weight loss journey event. How did that idea come up? Like, what made you want to do that? And then we'll, just share a little bit about like that journey and making that into a reality.
Yeah. So when I started visualizing again in my 9 to 5, I started Googling, or not like Googling, but I was watching YouTube of like how to meditate, but I wanted more of a guided meditation. And I found this meditation by, I think it was called is it Master Suri? I think that's his name. But I was listening to one of his visualization and I was just letting anything come to me. And at this point, I was already probably like, this is when I started taking my business seriously. And I just visualized, I saw myself on stage, and it's so crazy because I saw myself on stage, but all I could see was like the lights was shining on me, and then I just saw like people there. And I didn't know what that was at the time because I was just like, okay, there's a crowd, but I don't really know what that's gonna look like. And anytime I would do like a visualization where I don't have any intention behind it, but I'm just kind of like, let me just use this time to see where my brain takes me,
Mm-hmm.
it would always come back to like some sort of events. Like there's people around me. I'm talking to someone. I'm talking about a specific topic. I don't know what that topic is, but it was always like something related to community.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was like, I'm not in the place to do that yet because I just literally started my business. I had a little bit of imposter syndrome, but it was always something that I constantly thought about of, hmm, I really want to do an event one day, but I don't know what it is. And it wasn't until this year I was like, oh shit, I hit my 10-year weight loss anniversary. I should probably do something about it. And that was when the idea started spinning. And let me just like step back a little bit too. In last year, I found a co working space where I live. And I remember looking for a co-working space after COVID because I know everybody got tired of working from home. You just wanted to work in a different environment. And this place was so beautiful. They literally opened up before COVID hit. And I remember stepping into that and I'm like, oh, this is where I'm going to host an event one day because I just like the vibe of this. So I signed up for like the co-working membership and I always like go there to like work at least once a week. And when this idea came up of, oh, I'm going to celebrate my 10-year weight loss anniversary, I'm like, I know where exactly I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it at the Coven, which is the co-working space in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I just started visualizing how that would look like. And so I've always had this like idea of bringing people together, but I didn't know what it would look like. And it ended up happening because I was like, oh, it's the perfect time. Like, I'm celebrating something big. I want everybody to come together and just talk about weight loss and health.
Yeah. So we know the event happened and it was a success. But what were some of the challenges you had to overcome to get there, to get even all the tickets sold? Because, you know, we're in the mastermind together. So I know that was one of the things that you were worried about. And then it was like all of a sudden you're sold out.
Yeah, yeah. It's still blowing my mind as we're talking about this, but one of the biggest challenge was trusting the process. Like, and when I say trusting the process, it was really allowing myself to have good and bad days because what I have learned about manifestation in the past was you always have to stay positive. And like you
Right.
always
Yeah.
gotta have you heard of this saying with it like life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And you know when you're having a bad day, you're
Yeah.
like, why this is not the affirmation of the day.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of that where I'm like, I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know how many people are going to be there. And I literally was like, it's just going to be me and my clients. Literally, it's going to be me and my clients, and we're just going to have a chill day because nobody's coming. And the biggest challenge was regulating my emotions on the days where like I was having a bad day. And I'm like, okay, today is not going to be like a day where you're going to show up and talk about this a lot, but it's okay. Like you're going to be better tomorrow. And so I think like just balancing out like the idea that in the process of you doing your manifestation, it's not going to feel good. Because if I really think about the entire time, I did not feel good. I did not feel super positive, but I also didn't feel super negative because it was the way I was talking to myself of, we'll make it work. And the thought that I was practicing a lot was it's not over until it's over. And that really helped me like have the courage to be like, okay, we don't know who's going to be there, but we have like 2 weeks left. Let's see what we can do. And it was coming from this energy of like curiosity. So that was the first challenge. The second challenge that I had encountered was just believing something new. Like this is the first time I've ever did an event where it was like very public like this. And there was a lot of direction of, okay, you're not going to know what to do. This is going to feel like It's not going to be exactly like what you think it is. There's just a lot of uncertainty because I don't know what the heck I was doing. If I really think about it, I'm just kind of doing what I know.
Yeah.
And I had to really be okay with the uncertainty behind how things were going to turn out because I had this whole vision in my head. And the vision did came close to it, but it definitely, like, I had to release a lot of expectations so that I can have a better relationship with uncertainty.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. So you shared about not feeling positive all the time, which is important to know, right? Like there is a lot in the spirituality community and the manifesting community that you need to always be high vibe or, that your vibration, that you need to raise your vibration, which I do talk about raising your vibration, but also acknowledging where you are and where you feel. Like if you are at the lowest vibration and feeling super negative and down and out, no one should expect you to feel like within 10 minutes be in joy. Like that's impossible. That's not how things work. You just have to start learning how to lift yourself just a little bit more, just a little bit more. But that takes practice. And I like that you shared that you weren't super positive, but you also weren't super negative. So it sounds like you were maybe more like in the middle vibrations, which go from boredom to contentment to, just these emotions that aren't always feeling good, but they're in the more like middle ground, which isn't as super negative or super positive, which can also make you feel like, oh, am I really doing what I need to do to manifest what I'm desiring? But sometimes you have to go through that. Like you needed this growth, and this growth is going to help you in future events as a reminder to like, oh, I'm not always going to feel super happy because things are stressful. I'm sure putting something like that together takes a lot of thought, and then it's stressful. And then coordinating all of those things together, especially if you don't have a lot of people working for you that can help coordinate and check in with you and tell you like those blind spots. I imagine that it's a lot of different things that you didn't even realize you needed to think about. I know you talked about chairs, like there's this many seats because this is how many chairs there is, but
Yeah.
I'm sure it wasn't something that you had previously thought about that.
Yeah, for sure. And I just even want to say, like, what I've learned about manifestation, people always say, make sure your vibration is high. And I think this event, like manifesting this event, really showed me that I really don't have to be positive all the time. I really don't have to be in a high vibration for my manifestation to come true. It's really about not giving up, but also
Mm-hmm.
like seeing it all the way through. I think that's really what I see manifestation now, like when I really think about it versus more
Mm-hmm.
of like an emotion driven thing.
Right.
And yeah,
Yeah.
like it was really challenging because there were just little details that I didn't really think about, like how are people gonna know how to get to the room? And so I had to think about putting balloons up so I could direct people to the right place. But it's like I think all of this was very helpful to like even do was because I didn't get caught up on the detail at the very beginning. I think that was what helped me to not give up was to not focus on the detail right away and just let it kind of unfold itself, which I'm sure you probably talk about that a lot, which is very scary because sometimes you don't know how it's going to unfold.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it's best not to go into those details until a day or two ahead of time because you really aren't going to have a solution. There's times like there's really not a solution until there's a solution. But if you focus on it like weeks ahead, not only is it going to keep your vibration low, it's going to take your mental bandwidth. It's going to take you away from all the other things going on in your current life. So, well, you already kind of talked a little bit about like some misguided manifesting advice that you've already heard, which is being positive all the time. Is there any other advice that you've looked back and you're like, well, that was just a bunch of crap?
Yeah, I think the first thing that's coming to my mind, because I mentioned like feeling positive all the time, but also like holding space for emotions. I feel like there's not much talk around that, but I know your work does a lot, which I appreciate because I think in the manifestation community, a lot of people are like, yeah, this is how you should feel. But it's like at the same time, why can't two emotions exist?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like holding space for like different kinds of emotion, especially with so many things going on around in the world right now. It's like we can only vibrate so high until we feel the emotions of everybody that's going through the hard times. And so I think is this misconception that we can only feel one way
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
and we can have multiple emotions.
Okay, yeah, I like that. I like that. Yeah, definitely. And that I think definitely as first gen, and we're both first gen, so I guess we can speak on this. Not to say that others don't feel this also, but you have like so many expectations and you've seen like the struggles and the challenges of your family in a whole different way than someone like my kids might not experience that, right? They may not understand that I had challenges. So when you, as the first gen, see that firsthand with your parents, it may then push you to feel like, well, what do I have to be sad about? You know, my parents were eating rice and beans because there literally was nothing to eat. And I'm complaining about not being able to go have fast food or something. You know, like there's a lot of that duality that happens. And it can then make you feel even worse when you're just like, I should just be happy. But you can't because your reality is different from your family. And you have to accept that you are going to want more, you're going to desire more, and connecting to those desires is not a bad thing, but it's also about healing that, right? And letting go of whatever expectations and challenges might have been put on you by your family, them knowing or unknowing, right? Because as I've gotten older, my dad has really changed how he speaks to me in regards to my goals. He says more of like, I just want you to be happy. And that probably started maybe about 10 years ago. And that's very different from growing up hearing, don't get pregnant, don't quit school, go to school, you know, and that was it. Like he didn't really have like career aspirations for me per se, but it was more of like, don't get pregnant and don't quit school.
Yeah.
You know,
The usual.
right. And then, you know, years later, I mean, he did ask, like, as soon as I graduated college, he did ask, like, when are you going to be married and have kids? And it was like, you literally, like, spent my whole teenage college life telling me not to get pregnant. Now you're telling me, when am I going to get pregnant? And then, you know, after a few years, because I didn't have my first son until I was 31. And so I think in my late 20s, maybe, I don't want to say he gave up hope, but he was just kind of like, whatever, let her do whatever she's going to do. And I remember him saying, I just want you to be happy. I don't even remember what the conversation was about, but you know, whatever you do, just as long as you're happy, then I'm happy. I might have been telling him about a goal or something that I was thinking of doing. And I think that really started to release me from feeling that I needed to do things a certain way. And you may not ever hear that from your parents or someone, but you got to start saying that to yourself. And I mean, you said it to yourself. What was your parents' expectation when you decided to leave the 9 to 5 security?
I was actually really surprised that they were supportive because I literally told my parents, yeah, I'm getting laid off and I'm not going to find another job. And then my dad and my mom was like, okay, yeah, just focus on your business. And at that moment, I was like, are you saying you believe in me? But like, obviously they don't say, I believe in you.
Yeah.
They were shocked, but then they were like very supportive. And then even now to this day, like sometimes they'd be like, hey, have you thought about getting another job, so you can make more money? And like sometimes they'll just poke at what I'm doing, but then they'll be like, oh, okay, like it's whatever, like do whatever you want. So now it's coming to that point. But before I got laid off, my dad was always like, have a job and like have your business at the same time, always do both. And he was always like, safety equals money. And so that was always something that he was afraid of. I mean, until this day, he still like checks in on all of my siblings and I to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do. But then he's a little bit more lenient on it now because I was a cycle breaker. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go do this. And now my siblings are like, okay, since she's doing that, I could do this now.
That's funny. Yeah. And sometimes, yeah, our parents will surprise us in what we say. I know that when I was younger, I had told my mom that I wasn't going to have any kids. And she was just like, yeah, not everyone's meant to be a mom. And I was so offended. I was like, I don't know, 24. So, that's definitely a time not to be having babies, just so that you are just focused on you. But and I even think about like, why did I even say that? Like, now that I have children and I'm pregnant, I can't even imagine that version of me. So it's also good to remember, right? You're going to be a different version of yourself and be kind because this version of you, who you are today, isn't that you. You had different thinking. You had different goals, different expectations, different things that you wanted to accomplish. Because literally, I think back, I'm like, why did I say that? I always knew I wanted to get married and have kids. But did I? Obviously, I didn't. If I said it, why would I say it? I mean, unless I was trying to push your buttons, but I don't think so.
Well, that's so good that you brought that up though, because it just reminds me of one of the misguided manifestation rules that I've learned when I first learned about manifestation was that you have to know exactly what you want. When you know people are like, you have to be clear on your intention, you have to know, like, be very specific. And honestly, anytime I've manifested something, it has never looked like how I think it's gonna look. It's the package that's delivered is like, what? Okay, I guess like I'll take this, but it's never like very like apples to apples. So like I'll give you an example. Like when I'm manifesting new clients or like when I'm manifesting clients for my business, sometimes the universe would be like, okay, here's a client renewal. And I'm like, what? Like I met new clients, but yeah, new renewal clients are good too, but it's like it's delivered in that way, you know?
Yeah.
And then I'm even thinking about like the time when I manifested a parking spot at work. And it wasn't the exact spot that I was looking for, but it was like literally 4 spots down. And I'm like, okay, I guess, you know? And it's just like, I feel like it doesn't have to be specific. And sometimes I get caught up in that. I'm like, oh, I need to know exactly what I want. But really, like I could just have an idea. And then if I take action on it, the vision gets more clear for me. Like that's how I manifest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and that has helped me to like step into manifestation a little bit more than like knowing exactly. Because if I'm trying to figure out like how exactly that picture is gonna look like, then I have trouble even taking action because I get so caught up in the details.
Yes. Yes. I love that you shared that. Yeah. And I always teach that you want to be planning max 3 years ahead in your life because that version of you may not want what this current version of you wants. Things might change in a year. And so the 5 year, the 10 year plan, like that doesn't work. Like, I mean, maybe it worked at some point, when people work 20, 30,000 years at the same job, but you're a completely different person. If you think about it, minus 10 years from where you are right now, do you want that version of you creating your current reality? Like a
No.
16-year-old self, like, they're always being pressured on what you want to do with your life. But should a 16-year-old really be deciding what 26-year-old you is going to do? As 26-year-old you, should they be deciding what 36-year you? No, no, like, 2 to 3 years max is what you want to be planning for. I don't want to say that you can't manifest 10 years from now. You can embody the feeling that you want to feel. What more do you want to bring? And really focusing on more of the emotion. I love that you said not to focus on the details, and the details will come when it's time, right? Like the chair thing I talked about, right?
Yeah.
Like that was something that, or the balloon thing you talked about. Those were details that your mind didn't need to know at the time. And when we just focus on like, what's my next best step, on what I want to do, what do I want to feel, what do I want to manifest, what do I want to have more of in my life, the next best step is the best thing that you can ask yourself so that you're not overwhelmed because like you mentioned, otherwise leads to inaction of like, oh, well, I don't want to, I can't start because there's too many things to do, right? Kind of like, I think we planned to do this recording a month ago and I hadn't thought about it again until this week, right?
Yeah.
And the little details of like, oh, well, how is this episode going to go? Because you are my first just solely focused on manifestation podcast interview, right? So it's different. But I could have easily overwhelmed myself thinking like, well, how is the audience going to take it? Am I really asking the right questions? But allowing it to unfold live here and then also just the day coming allowed me not to stress out about it and just let it be.
I love that.
Now, what are some manifesting insights you would love to share with the audience? Maybe things that you realized on your own or things you've heard that you're like, oh, that was like the best manifesting advice I've heard so far.
Okay, I just recently started doing this year, but I love pulling cards, oracle cards. And I like to use it as a way to just get me thinking about where I'm at in my current situation. But that has helped me see things in different perspective of like, okay, things are not as small as you think it is, or things are not as big as you think it is. I mean, so if you are like into oracle cards, I recommend that. Or if you haven't tried it, I think you should. It's super fun. And I think everybody benefits from it because you're just like, oh my gosh, that's actually what I needed to hear today. It's like a form of validation, but from the universe.
Yeah.
And I think another valuable manifestation insight that I would like to add is you always have power over your manifestation tool. Because when I first learned manifestation, a lot of people had this like idea of like your manifestation is kind of like fortune reading. Like people can kind of get a little woo woo and they kind of go that route of like,
Yeah.
this is how your life should be like. But one of the things that I have found of what this person has said to me, I don't remember who it was, but they were like, you got to use manifestation like a tool, like to get to know yourself better more than like predicting what's going to happen.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And no one can predict what is going to happen. People can just give you, like, oh, it looks like currently the actions that you're taking, currently the thoughts that you're having, currently there it seems like these things are leading to this. Same thing with like astrology, numerology, they're just giving you the roadmap and you decide which way to take it. I love that you talked about oracle cards. And I just want to add to that, that if you are wanting to try that out and you haven't ever tried it, I would say start with like a light deck. I would not say tarot because tarot involves a lot more conscious thinking of like, what does this mean? When an oracle card can really just give you more of a meaning. And it's funny because I think it was in 2020, it could have been 2019. When I was still at my 9 to 5, I would, with my team, I have this book. It's called Notes from the Universe. I'm actually looking at it right now. I'm going to grab it because I want to flip through it. But I would ask them, like, if they wanted, I would flip through a page and it was always spot on, like whatever they needed to hear. And that book is written by Mike Dooley. If you've heard of him, he's really big in the manifestation world, all about manifesting. But I'm gonna grab it because I'm gonna turn some pages to see what you get.
That would be so exciting. I would love to know.
So Mike Dooley is the author of Infinite Possibilities: The Art of Living Your Dreams. But this one is the Notes from the Universe. I think he has like a couple of different versions. So you could pick a number from 1 to 212. What would you like?
115.
115. Oh, this is a long one. I'll send you a picture, but I'm going to read it to you. It says, you could never spend all the abundance that's yours to spend. Your supply is truly limitless. Of course, you already know that. The size of your supply isn't the issue. Finding it is. You know it's there, you know it's yours, and you know you deserve it. But how to get your hands on it, that's the challenge. Aha. How? Did you ask yourself how? You did. Oh dear, never ask how. Never think about how. Let go of the hows. If you ever wonder about how, it means your conscious is not dwelling in spirit. It means you're trying to manipulate matter, and it means you're going to be searching for a long, long, long time. Steer clear of the hows, dear heart, and simply dwell on the end result. Got it.
Oh, that's so
I
good.
love that actually. We didn't talk about focusing on the how or not focusing on the how.
Yeah. It's like when people say the who before how. I used to hate that shit when people said that to me. I'm like, are you serious? I'm a logical person. Give me step one, two, and three.
I am so logical too. So that leads me to when you were visualizing and you had your event, now that it's happened, Do you feel like what you were visualizing, the feeling, the end result was similar to the result in person? I'm sure it felt like 100,000 times more intense, but
Yeah, it felt exactly the same in terms of how I felt in that room, if that makes sense. Because in the visualization, I didn't see how many people were there. I just kind of saw myself standing and then like kind of how the decor, how I wanted to look like. And I just remember feeling like proud. So like at that event, I really felt like proud of myself and like really like excited for the people there. And I feel like it was exactly how it felt like when I was practicing my visualization, like that feeling of proud and excitement for the people there and for me.
yeah, yeah. Which goes back to the last sentence of the page where it was like focus on the results.
Yeah.
So, how can anyone in the community connect with you and anything else you would want to share with us?
Yeah. So before I mention connecting with me, I just want to say this. And this is something that I actually learned listening to your podcast, but I kind of put my own spin of my flavor into it. And a little tip that I just want to give you if you're like learning how to manifest right now or just wondering what that is, I want you to like focus on your superpowers. And I think everybody has different superpowers. I feel like mine is visualizing. And so I feel like I have to really double down on that. Yours might be feeling, like you might be a feeling generator, like you just know how to generate emotions really well. You might be someone who manifests through scent. Like I know my sister loves perfume, and like if she picks a perfume and she thinks of a place that she wants to be with that perfume, that helps her.
That's cool.
Or like just like if you are someone who your superpower is physical and like you need to get yourself in the environment to help you manifest, I just want you to like think about which one do you think you are and like go practice that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like visualization was my superpower for a long time, but I never realized it because I've always been like, like you're thinking, people are always like, you're thinking way too far, or like, that can't happen. That's not true. Like you're kind of cuckoo out of your mind for going that far. So it's like grounding myself in that.
Yeah, I don't know the names of them all off the top of my head, but everything you talked about, there's actually a name for it. One of them is like connaissance, which is just like knowing. I know that one is one of my super ones, but it also can be very challenging for me because I I'm very logical and want to know like the how behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So if that is you, if you're a person who maybe your superpower, like Sam said, is visualizing, but you have people telling you like you're wrong, you're going to feel like, is this right? So really figure out, kind of navigate for yourself. I'm going to find it and put it in the show notes, the different types, because the smell one is one of them too. So is
Is it actually? I didn't think it was a thing.
yeah, there is. And then there's like ways how you can start to build those up. I know there was a book I was reading, so I'll include that in the show notes because I don't know it off the top of my head right now. But when I heard the smell one, I was like, okay, but I love what you said. Cause I mean, everyone can be like, you walk into like Hobby Lobby during Christmas and you know that Christmas smell,
Yeah.
right? So like, like that's the one thing I'm like, oh yeah, Hobby Lobby Christmas smell. But that same smell can take you elsewhere too, right? So we all know it. We've experienced it. Maybe it's the smell of some food that your parents make and at certain times of the year, and that'll take you there. So everyone has the ability for each of them, but like you said, one of them is going to be stronger, right? It's going to be your super manifesting power and stepping into that, especially when you're feeling like my manifestation isn't coming, going into that, stepping into that. So I'll put it in the show notes and I'll share it with you too, Sam, so you can know them and have the actual label for your
Yeah.
sister. That is so cool. I've never heard of anyone that actually does it where she sprays the perfume and visualizes herself where.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's so interesting.
I feel like I should start doing that.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. I remember like magazines, as a teenager, you would get the magazine and smell that perfume or cologne, whatever it was. And it would be like, I just think of department stores, so I need to change it. Whenever I smell it, I just think of a Macy's or something.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not trying to go to Macy's. I need to go, I don't know. I don't even want to go to like a store. I just want to be somewhere fancy. But thank you for sharing that. Now, how can my audience connect with you and find you if they want to work with you or just learn more about everything that you are sharing on the diet culture?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at superlysam, and I also have a podcast called Your Winning Journey. You can find that on Apple and Spotify. I'm pretty sure Norma will note these down in the show notes. And then right now, I just have my 6 month one-on-one coaching. And so if you're someone who has been trying to lose weight, and we're at the new year, we're coming close, and you're like, I don't want to set the same 20-pound goal over and over again. I want to invite you to come work with me. This is my one-on-one coaching program. I'm going to help you lose 20 pounds, keep it off without following any diets, and help you like keep it off, because you're going to be doing it your way and you're going to be eating foods that you enjoy. So more information on that in the show notes, but that's where you can find me.
Thank you so much for sharing everything, Sam, and sharing on your journey. All right, guys. We'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you for listening to the Manifesting Latina podcast. Did you love today's episode? Please help us grow by leaving a review, sharing with a friend, or on your social media. Let's spread the abundance and fun of manifesting.